That Mario trailer looks fire. Yeah, not the way you expected me to start a Sonic video, was it? Well, just hear me out. Some of you might know I have never touched a Mario game in my life. I know next to zero about the franchise and have no personal attachment to it, and yet the Mario movie has me itching to see it on release. Say what you will about Chris Pratt's performance, Illumination's track record, or hell, the track record of video game adaptations in general, this movie looks like a fun ride. However, because of the growing hype surrounding this film, a lot of people are looking over at the Red Plumber's rival and his attempts at a big screen film adaptation. Both Sonic Movie 1 and Sonic Movie 2 were huge successes and did a great job pleasing longtime fans, as well as casual audiences. However, after seeing how much the Mario movie is embracing its game roots and flawlessly bringing its source material to life in the animated realm, I've seen a lot of people expressing their disappointment that the Sonic films took a completely different direction and brought the Blue Bird to life in a live-action, more modernized story. Listen, I want to make one thing clear right out of the gate. This is a completely valid thing to be bummed out about, and in a way, I understand it. The Sonic games have a lively, rich world full of an anime-sized catalog of characters, wild, unpredictable environments, and a huge amount of world building and lore. An animated Sonic film with the art style of the games that faithfully adapts the series to a T would be amazing, and yes, the Sonic movie could have been that. But just because the movies could have been that does not mean what we got is any less amazing. The Sonic movies, despite not looking like a super accurate representation of the games, flawlessly embodies the spirit and essence of what makes the games it's based on so special. And today, I'm going to be making my case for why these films are so special and hopefully remind some of you why they were so successful to begin with. But before I do, consider subscribing for more content like this if you're enjoying what you're seeing so far. Anyways, let's begin. Alright, first we're going to get the disrespect out of the way. This is a complaint I've seen for Sonic Movie 2 as well, but it's mainly prominent when it comes to Sonic Movie 1 especially. That being, instead of embracing a more traditional approach to Sonic narratives, the films took a page out of Alvin and the Chipmunks and the Smurfs by telling a family-friendly, fish-out-of-water story starring an anthropomorphic protagonist. I try to be understanding of different opinions, and no matter what, I am always respectful. But I could not disagree more. I see the similarities, but the main focus of Sonic Movie 1's simplicity wasn't to settle for cheap laughs or to jangle car keys in front of toddlers for the duration of its runtime. No, its main priority was to set up a foundation. Look, we're all hardcore fans here. We know about Gerald Robotnik and how his grief led him to try and destroy Earth. We know about Silver and how he's a time-traveling survivor of a hellish future who helms the power of telekinesis. We know about the Lost Hex, the Black Arms, Perfect Chaos, Dark Gaia, etc. This is a vast world full of world building, and as such, the movies made the wise decision to tackle it piece by piece. To general audiences, all they know is some speedy hedgehog named Sonic saves animals from a mad scientist named Eggman. That's it. So it was a smart move for the first film to prioritize establishing these characters as well as the dynamic before we get into the crazier stuff, which as we know is what the second film did. Kids in the 90s when they booted up the Sega Genesis didn't need to know where Sonic came from, who Robotnik was, how he got his machinery, etc. That game's sole need was to deliver a solid 16-bit platformer. But if you're running a full-length feature film aimed at casual audiences that's also meant to kickstart a franchise, these questions are kind of important, so I don't mind Sonic Movie 1 taking things slow and playing by the basics. I know there are some people who don't like the human characters and how much attention they get, but I just disagree. I thought Tom and Maddie were both integral and exceptionally likable characters, and their inclusion gives the plot a lot more flavor. A 1.5 hour story of a solo Sonic outrunning Robotnik and his machines might sound fun, but it doesn't once you realize our main character would literally have no one aside from the occasionally on-screen villain to play off of. Plus, the story would be excruciatingly bare bones and not that interesting. I think the human characters and their interactions are a nice way to spruce things up. Also, when people complain about the movie being set in the human world, it genuinely boggles my mind. Sonic Adventure, Sonic Adventure 2, Sonic X, Shadow the Hedgehog, 06, Unleashed, Sonic is absolutely no stranger to being in human environments, so I never understood this issue. You may be saying, okay, I completely understand where you're coming from, but Sly, why live action? To that, my response is, why not? I adore animation and think an animated Sonic film would look fantastic. I mean, hey, just look at Sonic Prime. However, I don't think this means live action is inferior since it comes with its own pool of benefits. Without live action, we would miss out on all these amazing performances, with the main one being Jim Carrey's Robotnik, and the fantastic CG work that brings these characters to life, and especially the real-life props and set designs that go into bringing the game environments into our world. Seeing stages like Green Hill, Ice Cap Zone, Labyrinth Zone, and Mushroom Hill fully realized in live action is really special. Sure, a live action movie may not look as gorgeous or impressive as an animated one, but it's still an art in its own right and looks fantastic nonetheless. Also, don't get me started on how faithful these films are narratively. Obviously, there's not a Tom Wachowski or a war between Lone Clan's Claw and the Echidnas anywhere to be seen in the games, but these are simply new elements meant to make this depiction of the Blue Blur stand out on its own, as most adaptations do. For the most part though, these characters are adapted beautifully. Sonic has his cocky, rebellious, teenage nature lifted straight from the 90s era of Sonic storytelling, blended with this heroic, never-say-die attitude of the more modern depictions we've seen in newer stories. Some might not like how doubtful and scared film Sonic is, but I think this is necessary for his character. You see, this version of him is not like his game counterpart. Yet. He's not always confident and sure of himself, but that's because he's still growing up and is still trying to figure out this hero shtick. I personally like this choice since it's a nice breath of air to see a Sonic who's more relatable and has a lot of growing to do. And don't get me fucking started on Robotnik. The narcissistic, egotistical, cynical, mad genius we all know and love is fully realized with Jim Carrey's bonker portrayal, and I love every second of it. He completely steals every scene he's in and is possibly the most captivating the character has ever been. I love how the movies take advantage of this more modernized take and shows a decline from an eccentric, destructive, barely restrained government agent to a completely insane, mad genius of an astronomically large god complex. Tails is literally just Game Tails brought over to the big screen with all of his charm, insecurity, and ingenuity. And Knuckles is a full-on badass that can be a little slow, but has his heart in the right place and has to bear the responsibility of his destructive ancestors. I always hate it when I see people say that Sonic movies aren't Sonic. These movies' characterizations are not only faithful, but in some aspects, even improved from the source material. This isn't even mentioning the world building. Sure, Lone Claw, the rings, and the function of the Master Emerald are either new additions or drastically changed, but they're still good additions that give these movies a stronger identity, and things like the Echidna tribe being destructive and power-hungry, and Gun being this antagonistic yet woefully incompetent militaristic agency are carried straight from the games. And with Shadow being a major player in the third film, I think we all know we'll see the Space Colony arc, and perhaps even Gerald and Maria Robotnik will play a part in Sonic Movie 3's narrative. So yeah, it felt great getting that all out. Like I said at the beginning of this little rant, I understand why fans might not like how the Sonic movies don't take the game mode as it is now and put it in a movie format that carries over the exact same character relations and visual presentation like the Mario movie is doing. But just because they aren't doing that does not make these adaptations unfaithful in the slightest. For all the reasons I laid out, I think the Sonic movies have an insane amount of love, passion, and appreciation for the games they're adapting, and that shows in every frame of these two incredible films. You don't have to like them, but to say they aren't trying to capture the same magic the games before them has is just false. Both Sonic Movie 1 and 2 are perfect as they are, and I would not change a single thing about them. Okay, maybe a little less flossing.